Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. My guest today is Mark Iverson, Cullum number 43304. We'll hear about Ivy's approach to academics and his consummate skill as a rabble rouser. Mark also discusses his medical situation, which makes this a very special conversation. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization, most particularly Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. Mark Iverson, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Paul.
Ivy,
Good to
down
see
there in
you.
Colorado Springs. Look at that spread you got there.
Thank you. Yeah, I built this place 25 years ago.
How did you end up in Colorado Springs? Why did you decide to live there?
Well, I was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division at Fort Carson, and when they wanted to reassign me somewhere else, I decided I like it here and wanted to stay, so I stayed.
That was it.
That was 1990.
You have been in Colorado Springs since 1990.
1986, really, actually.
Good for you. The whole time. So you grew up in Wisconsin, correct?
That's correct. Cheesehead and Green Bay Packer fan all the way.
Cheesehead, ever any thought to go back there?
No, not really. There are too many mosquitoes there, and the diet isn't great.
Absolutely.
But the people are fantastic in Wisconsin.
But I just got off the phone with Forrest Carpenter. You remember Forrest? He was in I3 with me, and he was in flight school with you.
Excellent. Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to see him tomorrow. And apparently, he's going to take me around.
Well, say hello for me. Yeah, that was a fun time for sure. When we were in Alabama, it was the only place you could buy a cocktail with about an hour's drive, within an hour's drive, because there were so many dry counties surrounding Fort Rucker.
Right. Always an important calculation, right?
The Officers Club at Fort Rucker was fantastic fun back then. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think we made fun of in every Officers Club we could find at the time, right?
Yeah. Those were the days.
Those are the days. Let's go back to 1978 to 81, Wisconsin, a young Ivy. I saw a picture. Monique, your lovely wife, showed me a picture of you running cross country. Is that right? What was your sports?
Well, I ran. Monique, which photo did you send them of me running?
It was a marathon.
I was training for the Marine Corps marathon when I was a yearling.
Oh, really? Okay. Good. Okay, great. So, what did you do in high school? Did you run? Were you
in high school? I played football, basketball, and ran track.
3 sports.
And I did all kinds of other stuff to get out of work. Same reason at West Point. That's why that running picture was I was training for a marathon. That was just to get out of marching.
You seem to have a certain skill at that, my friend. And what was it about West Point that attracted your attention?
The tuition.
You like the tuition?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, people forget those were the recessionary times, right? When we were growing up.
Yeah, it was a great deal. I had bumped into a cadet I went to Boys State as a high school kid.
Mm-hmm.
Ran into a West Point cadet there, and he pretty much talked me into checking it out. So I went to the library, got a pile of books, sitting behind a pile of books, and the teacher, who was surprised to find me behind a pile of books, knew a little bit about it and sat down with me and basically talked me into filling out the forms.
Okay.
So.
But his first reaction was he was shocked that you were reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so when you got into West Point, did you prepare when you went back for our day, or were you like some of the rest of us who just kind of showed up? How did you approach getting into West Point?
I showed up with a T-shirt that said, "Feet don't fail me now." So I'll tell you.
What was your impressions of? What were your first? Had you visited the academy before you went?
No, never. As my first step on there was our day.
You and me both, brother.
So the day before, my parents said, "Hey, we got you a hotel package in Manhattan." Well, that's cool. I didn't know what that was all about.
Right.
My dad's cocktail at the time was a Manhattan. We used to go to the Elks Club, and it would cost him between 50 cents and 65 cents for a Manhattan. So I walked over to Rockefeller Center, thought it'd be great to have a Manhattan in Manhattan, ordered a Manhattan the night before our day. They said, that'll be $5. And I said, do I get to keep the glass? So that night, I took my roll of quarters, put them in the phone, and started calling my folks.
Yeah,
After it doesn't ring 2 times, you do it again. Remember those days?
I do.
I had enough quarters to get a hold of them, start telling them my Manhattan story. My dad says, wow, that's great. How was it? Oh, it was delicious, Dad. Guess what, Dad? It was $5. First words out of his mouth. Did you get to keep the glass? So I just remembered Greg Enox is from Wisconsin.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, huh?
Yeah.
That's
So then I
funny.
show up for our day with that T-shirt, and
Yeah.
there we are.
Now, did you have a big mop of hair, or what was your deal?
I looked like one of those kids on a TV show. Slight curls,
Yeah, parted in the
blonde
middle.
hair, blonde hair down to here.
Yeah,
It was like every other kid's hair at the time.
yeah. I chickened out and cut it before I went.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah. But it wasn't short enough. They recut it. But I know some of you braver guys showed up with a nice set of locks. So you came in sporting some hair.
I came in sporting hair.
Yeah.
You could do this and feel it one of
Those
those
are good
days.
days, man. Now
And of
that was
course, in Wisconsin, you couldn't have long hair because it would freeze.
yeah,
And everybody had the frozen hair haircut.
yeah.
Walking home, you just snap off hair.
Oh, jeez. Well, I grew up in California, so I didn't get that privilege. How did you find
Oh, you
Beast
missed.
Barracks? You were there for the tuition. Your feet didn't fail you, but it got you in there. How'd you find Beast Barracks?
Oh, it was something else. I was in Old South, so the steps associated with that being
Yeah,
siloed in those silos.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
crazy how we were split up. You forget who was in your beast company
Right,
because it was really just you and your stairwell.
right, right, right. You were in E1 as a plebe, right? So that was over
E1,
that
damn
first
it.
regiment.
Yeah,
So what was that like? Because the first regiment's a little tough, right? It's a little tougher than the
it
old
was
third
great.
regiment. Yeah.
One of my common memories of freshman year, Brock Perkuchen and I apparently resembled each other when we're pinging in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So we had a lot of episodes where I'd be pinging away. They would say, Perkuchen, halt. Of course, I'd keep going.
You just
Same thing happened to him. He'd start pinging away. They'd say, Iverson, halt.
you just keep going.
Neither one of us stepped or even stopped. We just kept going until the
Hey, you
army
were
of the
within the
up.
letter of and spirit of the law, right? Off you went.
Yeah, we just took off. And then when they ran up and caught up to us, they realized, oh, my
Yeah,
bad. It's like the cop who pulls you over and realizes he got the wrong car or something.
right.
But yeah, Perkucha and I messed with the upperclassmen for sure.
Right. And how did you get through plebe year? What was your coping mechanism? You've always had a wicked sense of humor. Did that help you out?
I used to get in trouble because I smirked at the upperclassmen. Do you
I can
find
see
this funny? Yes, sir, I do.
that. I get you in a
That
little
was my
trouble.
common response. Yeah. Well, and then I discovered the volleyball team then too.
Okay.
So I played volleyball all 4 years.
You
But it was
did.
the
I didn't know
first,
that. Okay.
yeah, it was the freshman year that I was very fortunate. I went to one of the early tryouts. I dove on the ground and broke my right wrist.
Really?
So I had no volleyball skills to speak of, but suddenly I had a cast in my right hand and a left hand that worked, and my vertical jump survived the fall. So the coach kept me on as manager, and I was
Okay.
able to go to all the practices, practice left hand and all that. By the time my yearling year came along, I had skills with both hands, and I made the team.
Now, did that get
Barely.
you out of marching?
It did.
There's a theme here, right?
It was great. Yeah, marching was not my friend. I mean, I enjoyed being in a straight line, but I thought it was a waste of time.
Right. I remember you having views on the matter when we were cadets, because we live right down the hall from each other.
Yeah.
So I lived with Phil Yost and Forrest Carpenter and that whole crew down there. We were down at the end of the hall.
Oh, and what were the views you remember?
Well, we were looking out. We had one direction we saw the soup's house, then we looked out on the plain. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
when we were on the other side, we see into north area, of course.
We had a beautiful view of the plane from our rooms
You did.
in
You
MacArthur
did.
Barracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Something, of
Yeah.
course, we didn't appreciate till much later.
Right. We actually had a very we had a good positioning just for views alone. But I remember we used to go down and you guys were a lot funnier than we were. We were a little more serious in our group. But we go down to hang out and you guys would keep us laughing down there in G
We
three.
spent a lot of time in the day room.
We
There were these sitcoms just coming out.
yeah
Cheers and Friends were just starting, if you remember.
yeah
And of course, we gravitated to those shows.
yeah. Now, what did you study when you were there? What was your course of study?
Well, the engineering stuff that we all did,
Yeah.
and organizational leadership,
Okay.
which I found fascinating.
I mean, Rich Pascoe was in that program as well. A couple folks we've talked to. Yeah.
Colonel Patrick Benton was the best part of that.
How so?
I, well, he was a wonderful teacher, great storyteller, gave us really good direction, perspective, and his leadership examples really connected with me. I loved him.
That's great.
I heard he retired to Washington, University of Washington,
Oh yeah. Okay.
but who knows? I need to verify that.
Yeah. I was on the math side, so we didn't have as much charm on that side.
Yeah, but your answers were correct. They were either right or wrong.
Right.
Funny, that's what I told my son when he went to college. He
Yeah.
wrote a paper on a rock and roll song and he got a D on it. I read the article, I thought it was fantastic. I said, "This is why you avoid the liberal arts, buddy. Go into
That's right.
engineering. The answer is right or not.
Unless you're me,
And
where you would often get the
you
answer
don't need to
wrong.
deal with a professor giving you
Right.
his political junk or whatever."
Yeah. Yeah.
So he followed that path and now he's a very successful engineer in Washington State.
Oh, okay. And in terms of kids, you just have how many children do you have? Just the one?
Two adults.
Two adults.
My daughter married an Air Force Academy cadet, which is a risk when you live in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And so we have two grandkids that are half Air Force.
Okay. No kidding. And how old are they? They're younger now. The
They're
grandkids.
4 and 2 months.
Oh wow. Okay.
Beautiful little kids,
Yeah. Yeah. And
but they're
then where
half
did
Air
they
Force.
settle? Are they still running around, or are they settled somewhere?
They're pretty well settled in North Carolina.
Okay.
He flies F-15s.
Ah, can't beat that.
No, they're doing well. They're happy. So I'm happy for them. I'm not proud of them, but I'm happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's nice. Talk a little bit about the van. You're kind of famous for the van, and we talked a little bit about it when I visited. But you had the van when you were a cadet. What was that all about?
Oh, my cadet car was a first generation Chevy minivan, Chrysler minivan.
Right.
And I decked it out to have a beautiful bed in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could take road trips and crash in the back,
Right.
drive to Wisconsin. It was wonderful. And then, of course, I had classmates who wanted to have access to my back of my van. So I started charging for it. It was my first entrepreneurial venture, and it was very successful.
You were very popular because of that van.
Yeah, the rules were $30. Here you get the keys. The van comes back spotless, full tank of gas, and no stories are told.
So your product was the silence.
Yeah, that's key. But when I sold it, I was with a group of people in Savannah, Georgia at the time, and four or five of them were like, "Oh man, that van, that's where we blah blah blah. You should have called me when you were going to sell it." I said, "Well, I had no idea it meant that much to you, but apparently it meant a lot."
You know, you got to wonder if there's any class of 2005 or six running around there that began their life in that van. But I'm not. We'll just leave it at that because we promised no
Yeah,
stories.
I would expect there would be a few.
And Tommy Eccles was your salesman for that van, if I remember. If you told me right,
He
he was your
helped, yeah.
booker, right?
X could sell anything.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, you guys had a racket going. I love that.
We
Talk,
did.
talk a little bit about Wheeze. You know, Wheeze. We just saw he went down there and he actually gave you the gopher, which I think's
He
pretty
did.
outstanding, right?
Yeah, so we were the Gophers,
Mm-hmm.
and then Caddyshack was still fresh on everybody's mind. And Jay Bridge got a gopher from the movie I'm All Right. And then our company nickname was the Gophers, which I think we inherited from a previous year.
Sure.
And so we were all about that. We were silly, and we thought we were really funny, like kids do, you know?
Well, we were the polar bears. I guarantee you that we inherited that because nobody would have come up with that idea down in our company. So, but you actually have the gopher now, which is pretty. That's outstanding.
I have the actual gopher,
The actual gopher.
and then we got to check the day room. Dean Rogers was an excellent artist. He painted a gopher on the wall to the right of the television. And so
Yeah.
we're very proud of the artwork in our day room. And the Wheeze was famous for, I shouldn't say this, Wheeze, sorry. He would reach up into the vending machine. He'd look at you first. "Hey, you want a Kit Kat or a Coke?" "Yes, please, I would love one." He'd reach his arm up into the vending machine and grab whatever you wanted.
Yeah. He, he double jointed in a way that not few people are, right? The man had skills,
He had vending machine skills for
vending
sure.
machine skills. Well, Weeze is still, he graduated with us and he's down there in Colorado with you, right?
Yeah, he's right up the road from me, about an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah, yeah. So Weeze is just up the road. Yeah, I know he goes down there. He goes down there and sees you. And
Yeah, he was down to
so
see me a couple weeks ago. It was great.
yeah, yeah.
We've seen those guys a few times. So
You
Weeze
shared the
and
video.
Billy Hensley,
Yeah.
and then we'll usually do a FaceTime call with Jay Bridge,
Yep.
number 69 on your Army program, ladies and gentlemen.
What? Now, why did you decide to fly helicopters? That's a pretty intense
Well,
profession there.
one, it looked fun, and two is I went to while you guys were doing actual Army things between Yearling and Kyle Year, I went to the Northern Warfare Training School in Alaska,
Yeah.
which was just great fun, and it was goofing off for the summer. It was wonderful. The only hardship we had was one overnight. It was raining and freezing cold.
Yeah.
We're in our position, and this Huey lands to pick us up. I climb in the back, and the pilots are sitting in the front drinking hot coffee. I'm freezing. I look at them on the front and I said, "Well, that's what I want to do."
That's where I want to be, is up there with those guys.
So the trick was always study enough to have grades, but not so much that you lose your eyesight
Right. Right. Right.
to
You
get
had
into
two
flight
requirements
school.
there, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a bit of an academic hurdle,
You got a good choice. You got to go to Fort.
but you pretty much had to be in the
Colorado
top half
Springs.
of the class
Okay.
on the bell curve. That's kind of where it cut off.
Those of us who were in the bottom half didn't make that calculation. You guys, the smart guys in the top half, figured it out that you needed to be there.
Well, it was pretty clear when you got your acceptance. It had your bell curve rank and then showed the flight school acceptance, which ended right at the top of the bell curve.
There you go.
We all know the story where you get a 94 and a C minus on a test, and then you get a 57 and a B plus on another test. Those bell curves were brutal,
They were
unless you're
brutal.
Mike Pompeo, right?
Yeah. We can always point to him for ruining
Yeah, and
the
then
rest
if
of our
Mike Pompeo
parade.
walked into your class, you're like, "Damn it!" The
There are
bell
a
the
lot
bell
of
curve just shifted significantly.
A lot of very smart guys walk into class. Your head would just drop and say, "Oh, rats! Looks like it's air
Yeah.
defense artillery for me."
I got to get out of this class section.
Right,
Find a bell curve I can compete with better.
right on.
Of course, not with no data.
Everywhere you go, that's how it is, right? Find the bell curve you can compete in. That's the thing.
That's how everything went, remember? Yeah.
But you did well enough that you got aviation, and then you ended up heading to Colorado Springs with it, or
Barely,
Carson.
let me say that barely well enough. I think there were only one or two spots left after I took one of those.
Okay.
I was no academic star by any stretch of the imagination, and I never tried to be. So,
You weren't afraid to go out and have a bit of a good time as a gopher, as I recall.
no, our group was all about enjoying the experience and not getting caught and getting other people in trouble. Sometimes we did that, not by intention,
Right.
but it happened a couple times. Yeah, we never forced anybody to join us down in the steam tunnels
No,
or dive off the swimming pool.
you guys had a pretty good reputation in our group. That's for
We
sure.
did.
Hmm.
We earned it, certainly.
You certainly did. So talk about flight school. You tell some stories about you got down there, you got your flight suit on, you got your officers club. What was it like heading down to flight school and learning how to fly a helicopter?
Well, the best part of flight school for me was that there were a bunch of Vietnam veterans still around, and they were all excellent pilots. And so they taught you, one, how to be a great pilot, and two, they stretch things a little bit. You'd say that on the red line for the Huey goes here. They said, no, that's not true. It'll go up to here. They'd scare us occasionally,
Right.
but they knew the capability of the aircraft because they had already pushed its limits a few times. So our generation was able to learn a lot. That was
Yeah.
great because that, I think, is all gone. I would expect the current aviators are all flying within the lines, which is much safer for everybody.
Sure. And then was that your primary equipment when you went to Fort Carson, the Huey, or
Yeah.
did you get into Blackhawks and all that?
Yeah. Everything I flew is now retired and wrapped up in fabric in Tucson, Arizona, probably.
So you got through flight school. You got to Fort Carson. What was it like going to a unit? And did you find that exciting?
Yeah, it was great. We had a wonderful unit. They had just returned from a short deployment in Honduras, so they thought they were pretty hot shot because we were flying vaccines to villages with
Yeah.
doctors and nurses in the back, so they could go out and vaccinate large groups of people.
Right.
So we thought we were doing good work and then enjoying the beaches of Honduras.
Got to rest
And
up.
of course, flying in Colorado was fun.
Absolutely.
We
So did you
saw
you?
beautiful wildlife formations.
So how far did you fly that helicopter in Colorado? Did you go up over the big mountains and all that?
Oh, yeah. Flew over the top of Pikes Peak a couple of
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
underneath the Royal Gorge Bridge, which is all pretty illegal now.
Yeah. Right. Because you go up skiing or whatever, and you see helicopters that are clearly military up there practicing up there at the high altitudes.
Yeah, they have to practice because it's a different type of flying.
Right.
So flying at that altitude in a helicopter is like driving on sheer ice. The air is thin, and so you just slide. You slide when you make a tight turn. You just slide right through it.
Huh.
Can be pretty dangerous.
Did you have to go to any special training for that, or was that kind of in your unit? You all adjusted
That
based on
was
the
within the
altitude.
unit. We had unit trainers who were altitude specialists. Yeah, they kind of kept it in house.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense, right? What was
Yeah.
one of your favorite moments as a helicopter pilot? What was something you remember you really loved, other than the beaches of Honduras?
Making Air Force Academy cadets throw up in the back. So I had a trick, 100% success. You go to the Air Force Academy, pick up some cadets, and then of course they're all loudmouths. Can't this thing go any faster? So then what you do, the beauty of a helicopter is you drop down to tree level.
Yeah.
So the trees are eye level to them.
Yeah.
Drop down there, some moves here and there to get them kind of excited. And then you go up in the air, you turn and you stop.
Right.
That first hover gets them spooked. And then you go backwards a little bit. Then you
Yeah.
stop again. Then you go to the left, stop. And by that time, the crew chief is in the back saying, "God damn it, sir, you're going to help me clean this shit up." I said, "Yes, you got it. I'll be right back there with a sponge and cleaning stuff." But I was so happy it worked. And then I would scream to the back, "Is this enough speed for you guys?" "Yes, sir, we're good. Thank you." "All right, you Air Force cadets, we'll have some candy bars and brownies for you when we land." Not.
100% success.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
That was my vomit move. 100%.
I
One of the
love that.
Vietnam guys taught me that move
Is that right?
in flight school. Yeah. Said, "Hey, if anybody gives you shit for driving slowly," the whole stop thing and backward thing freaked him out a little bit.
Yeah. It freaks me out just hearing it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny when you're in the trees. So the fuselage is below the trees. They're sitting on the sides.
Right.
So tree branches are coming into the vehicle. That was very scary and dangerous because if your main rotor hit any of those tree branches, that was a little too much excitement.
So so it was 1991. They were drawing down a bit. What was your decision to get out? What was your calculation on that front in terms of getting out of the Army?
Well, I thought it was interesting. Some friends were going into this thing called pharmaceutical sales. It sounded fun. You talk to doctors, you get a company car, you dress up, and they paid pretty well.
Yep.
And at the time, my company was hiring a lot of military guys. It was a small company called Pfizer. At the time, it was a small company,
Yep.
no longer a small company, but they called us Fort Pfizer.
Right.
And the first meeting I went to, there was a lot of classmates and a lot of friends I knew who joined the same corporation. And there was a company photo taken. I was with them 3 or 4 years. "Let's gather all the West Point guys on this end of the room for a photo." I think there may have been 1,000 of us.
Really.
They really liked their military guys at that company at the time.
I remember it. I remember 91 would go to those job fairs and the pharmaceutical guys would line up and you
Yeah,
got
it
an
was
offer
it
from
was
every single
Pfizer
one.
and PepsiCo at the time. We're
Yeah.
going
I
for
went to
all the
PepsiCo.
JMOs.
Yeah, I went to PepsiCo. That was where I went. That
Did
was
you?
my same thing.
Yeah, those were the two. Those were the two big ones
Yep.
for that generation, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the Army didn't make it very attractive to stay in, and PepsiCo and Pfizer made it attractive to get out. So the logic just
The Army made it easy to get out then.
they did.
That was the Million Man Army in 1991. They were just wanting you out.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, "Oh, when do you want me out?" Do you remember that? You're at your whatever. I was at the officer advanced course at the time. They give you the packet of paper and I said, "Oh, they want me out now.
Yep.
When do you want me out?" "By the end of next week."
Yeah.
"Okay."
I put in my paperwork and was turning in my equipment a week later.
It was crazy. Then of course you had to get all your extra dental work done. You remember that, trying to pack all
Yep.
that in? They were saying if you need any voluntary medical services, we have medical staff standing by. People were getting all their dental work done,
Yeah.
elective surgeries,
Yeah.
because
To
they
get
were
off.
overstaffed in the medical world at the time. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then you go to your first job, your company meeting, and everybody there's a former military guy.
Yep.
That was neat.
That what did you? How was that transition for you selling pharmaceuticals? What was your perspective as you put that suit on as you got out there?
Oh, I loved it. My boss was a Vietnam vet. My mentor was a two-tour Vietnam vet. And so it was like going home. And it was, yeah, you're former military, relax. We're all former military. Here's the
Right.
mission. Let's get this done. We had a lot of fun.
And what was your first territory? Did you travel much?
It was in Colorado Springs and Pueblo, Colorado.
Yep.
So it was southern Colorado, so I knew I got to know the state really well.
Sure. A lot of mileage driving around in your company car down there in the desert,
Yeah,
right?
I turned in a company car every year and a half.
Yeah.
That was neat. Brand new car every year and a half.
Yeah.
I only crashed into two of them, but it was the ice's fault. It wasn't mine.
that's always the that's always the
Yeah,
thing you want the police officer to say. And it's fascinating in Colorado how the police officer always find ice for you if you're nice to them.
exactly.
Oh, I see ice over there. You must have slid on that. Oh, yes, sir. Not that I've ever done that. How long did you do pharmaceuticals, and what was the? Did you just kept
I
doing
did
that?
20 years with them, and
20
then went
years.
into the oil and gas business.
Yeah, I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was with that business for 10 years, building natural gas pipelines for cities and factories and stuff. So
Yeah. So what were you selling with the oil and gas? Was it equipment or?
we were building new pipelines to serve communities, natural gas.
Okay.
People don't realize where they're when they turn on their oven, they have this nice little blue flame that comes from somewhere, and sometimes it comes from somewhere thousands of miles away. And there's a lot of industrial work and infrastructure that goes into getting that to you clean and safely. But it happens
Absolutely.
every day, and they should appreciate it instead of worrying about fracking and stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's nice to have that blue flame come out, right?
Well, you
For
ban
sure.
fracking in the US, and all you're going to do is force the rest of the world to do their fracking. You
Yeah.
want pollution, let the Russians and Venezuelans do the fracking. Now you're
Yeah.
going to have pollution.
Right.
Or you could keep it in Texas, and it's a pretty clean industrial process,
Yeah. Fracking Venezuelan style.
especially
Yeah.
compared to those other areas.
Yeah. And so, did you find it hard to go from one industry to another? I switched industries myself and found it hard sometimes. Did you find that hard?
I was very lucky because I had a mentor assigned to me who is extremely generous with her time, and she and her husband became very close friends, kept me out of trouble, and I got to be honest, one of my first big assignments, the company I was with, they had a box at the Denver Pepsi Center, permanent luxury box. So every concert, every hockey game, every Nuggets game, we had tickets to it in the suites. And everybody else at the company was sick of going to these events. So as the new guy who's enjoyed socializing, they said, "Ivy, you're covering this concert next week. Who is it?" "It's a country singer named Taylor Swift." I said, "Well, I don't like country. I don't think I can do that job." "No, you need to go. You're covering for the rest of us." "All right, I'll go." So I had to scratch and claw to find people to go to this event with me.
Right.
And I'll be damned if she didn't blow me away with her performance, her talent, and her ability to entertain a group of people.
Right.
I ended up turning around thinking, wow, that young lady is phenomenal. And she's done okay since.
She seems to have been done all right.
Yeah. So this would have been 2010 when I was forced to watch her at a concert.
It was a
Ended up being a
tough
fantastic
job you were doing there, but
experience.
your courage didn't quit as you had to go to all these concerts and games, right?
Well, it was me and a bunch of daughters of customers. The customers couldn't make it, but they brought, "Hey, can my daughter come?" So it was me and about 12 young ladies. I got to
Yeah.
that one scot-free without getting in trouble.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked you were able to get out of there without any causing any trouble, but thank goodness for small favors. You retired now. You actually had retired from that
Yeah, I
job in the
did.
Navy, right?
I had a fantastic retirement. I was golfing every week,
Yeah.
skiing right when the season started, and then in over Thanksgiving week, I ended up having a seizure.
Yeah.
They did a CAT scan, found a little mass in my head, said we need to do surgery, and while waiting for surgery, I had a stroke. So now I'm
Right.
paralyzed on my left side, doing rehab, trying to get my skills back.
Right. Right.
But until that happened, retirement was fantastic, and I recommend it for whoever can do it.
Highly recommended. Absolutely. Highly
Yeah, if you
recommended.
can do it, if the numbers work out, do it. You don't know what can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
So now I'm rehabbing the house, making sure it's all safe and stuff for people
yeah.
like me. It's getting there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm currently in hospice care, which means they pull the rug out from you on everything.
Right.
So I have my hospice diet. My hospice drink is whiskey, and I picked up smoking.
You know,
So I say, honey, I'd like a hospice cigarette, please,
just let her
and
rip.
another whiskey.
And I understand you're having um, brownies for breakfast,
I have brownies as frequently as I can.
right? I'll tell you what, man.
So I have three sisters who visited. They're not
Okay.
competitive at all. They said, Mark, what would you like? I said, I would love brownies. So I have three sisters and family friends competing to make the best batch of brownies. My wife, Monique, gets very close, but my sister, Nancy, is still the leader.
Nancy brings home the gold.
And our friend, Deanne, whose husband is an Air Force Academy grad, she did really well too.
Okay.
So I had Air Force brownies that are excellent, and then sibling brownies that were amazing. And Monique just made a batch yesterday that are fantastic.
You know,
But the brownies fit in with the hospice diet regulations.
yeah, yeah, it's right there in the regulations. So go for it. Cigarettes, brownies. There you
Yeah, we
go.
do gluten-free, extra grain, protein hospice brownies. All kinds of
And-
every nutrition you can find. Horse nutrition
right.
on the internet, we'll add that to the brownies. That's the beauty of brownies. And then we're in Colorado, so there's always that option too. That's it. It kills the brain tumor. So
Yeah. There you go. Little known remedy, right? So you're on top of it.
right, we need to advertise that.
There you go. There you go. So looking back at your adventures, you are an absolute you were a legend at the academy. Everyone loved everyone I talked to knows you in some way. You guys really you ran a great program down there because you were very well known. And then of course the Colorado Springs. What advice would you give your younger self if you could look back in time?
Probably study a little harder, or try just how about study? Because I
Study.
didn't at all. I
Nope.
really let a lot of stuff go to waste. And there's a lot of things I should have learned that I didn't because I was so lazy academically.
And yet smart enough to get into aviation. So
Lucky enough.
I don't think I I
So
don't
I did
think
weird things like the English professor one time said, "Here's the story. Summarize the story with the key points, or you can write a limerick about the story." And I wrote a poem about the story. The silliest little limerick. Well, he loved it, so I got extra time for that,
there you
extra
go.
grade, just because it was different than what everybody else sent in. And of course, then
Right.
everything was handwritten, and my cursive handwriting was pretty good.
Yeah, right. Everything was handwritten.
My mother was a calligrapher, so she made sure I had good penmanship.
Yeah.
You could read everything.
And
And I
you were
wasn't
a
left handed, so I wasn't smearing the paper.
right. I actually write left-handed as well. So we had the advantage, I guess. So you took a little better advantage of it because I didn't write a poem.
Okay. So there was that, and there's probably the Rabble Rousers gave us some visibility too.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry we bypassed that because that's a key story here. Talk about how you became a rabble rouser.
So we were in a room of four of us, four good buddies, and Craig Rollins and Jay Bridge were on the football team as football players, eating all the Insure Plus and all their food. And in the evening, you had all the side effect, wonderful things that happened in your room that you couldn't escape. So a lot of people would open up the windows and the doors and get fans from the PX because these football players who were eating 8,000 calories were just filling it with bad air. So my
Yeah,
other roommate, Dean Rogers, and I decided we have to find a scheme to get to all the football games next year so we can go to these games and see our buddies. And somebody let us know, hey, the Rabble Rousers are having tryouts. We both said, that's it. We can be the bottom of the pyramid. So for first year, we both tried out, and shocking to us, we both made it.
you made it in first a year. The last year at the academy, you made the rabble rouser squad.
Yes. With
And
no,
I'm going to show a picture of you as a rabble rouser right now.
we had no gymnastic skills whatsoever, but we could yell through a tube, wave our arm, we could lead the rocket.
And now, how many trips did you go on all the football trip
We went to
sections, or
every away game, so it was a lot of fun. We went to the bowl game and the Peach Bowl. Those were really good trips. We
that's a
went
great trip?
to, where else did we go? University of Pennsylvania.
Sure. Well, there was a lot less budget back then, so the fact you could go to all those games is great.
Well, that was the whole plan was to get to go to the away games. Yeah, and then we come home in the middle of the night, got to meet really pretty cheerleaders from other teams.
It's hard work out
That was
there.
not an incentive, but it was pretty good.
You know, it's a benefit. It's like a Taylor Swift concert. You had to do the hard work.
And we got to cheer for our buddies.
Yeah,
So the talented rabble rousers would do their flips and their gymnastic things down to the middle of the yard, to the middle of the field, and then Dean and I would start at the end zone, run to the 50-yard line, stop, and do a simple somersault, then stand up and go, yay. We always got a great reception for that move.
well,
Just doing a somersault at the 50-yard line.
quality always brings the cheers, brother. I mean, that's
Yeah, we
that
got a
right
lot of
there.
cheers.
Well, I think we all knew it was you, and so when you were running out there, we all went nuts because we knew we were all screaming your name.
Everybody knew there was no talent.
Well, but
And
you
recently,
had a huge
Dean,
cheering section.
do you have
Yeah.
the sweater? I actually still have the sweater, and it still fits.
Well, see, that's the
So
thing. You still have the sweater, and it still fits. All of
proud of
my
that.
sweaters from the era Ivy, they shrank in the wash.
That's the danger of having wool.
Right. And I've grown out of them a little bit. Oh gosh, it's fantastic.
So here it is, the
Oh
real
my goodness,
item. I'll sell this on West Point eBay.
get out of town. That is the original.
So
Still
this one
have it.
stood on the top of Veterans Stadium and led the Corps in the rocket. There's only one
That's
other one like this, and that was worn by Dean Rogers.
get out. That's fantastic.
So that was the very rocket when you're standing on the field
Yeah,
and the two
absolutely.
guys are on the top of the
It
Veterans
was you guys.
Stadium.
It
That
was you
was
both.
one of the sweaters that led the rocket. And then we quickly ran away.
It's a slice of history right there. That looks in very good shape. So you took good care of that over the years.
It was in plastic for a while.
Yeah. So were you a guy that goes back to all the Army Navy games and all that,
I've been
or
to
did
two
you
of them,
two of them? All right.
but I want to go back to more of them for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they keep moving them around, so you got to track them down a little bit.
Yeah, now they're all
How
over the
about the Air
place.
Force games? You've been down to those a lot? A lot?
I go to Air Force games because they're right up the street,
Yeah, right.
but they're boring as hell because Air Force cadets don't know how to have fun.
Well, there's that.
They freak out over having a hover.
Right.
But this year's game was sure a lot of fun. We had a mini
Yeah.
class reunion with just our G3 guys. It was great.
Which one was that, Ivy?
This last Army Air Force game where we crushed
Oh, it
them.
was great, wasn't it? Yeah. I missed you. I was there because I live in Denver. I was up in I was up with Jay Millen. He had a group together. We were there as well, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were in the parking lot. One of our members had too much fun and had to go to the medical tent to get an IV fluid infusion.
Well, that's how you
But
know.
other than that, we had to remind him that he's not 22 years old anymore
Right. You're not
and get
really
him
trying
back and
until one of the
hydrate.
members. Yeah, you're not really trying until one of the members of the group needs an IV, right?
Yeah, then you become a loser. That's the wrong side of the fun scale.
Right. That's that bell curve. The wrong side of the bell curve
Buddy, we
again.
can't help you now. Your face just turned 8 shades of something, and I don't like any of the colors. Walk with me over here.
You kind of age out of that behavior a little bit, unfortunately. But some people don't remember that we're a little older now. The body can't process that way.
Well, lucky for him, we were able to blame the altitude
That's right.
and the spotch of ice that he slipped on.
It's that darn spotch of ice in July. Oh man,
Right.
that's tough.
It sneaks up on you in the high altitude elements.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't. How do you respond to the obviously the altitude you've been in for years and years, but you can go up to the 14,000 feet and not feel it, or how do you feel about that?
I used to do the Pikes Peak hike pretty frequently, and once you get past it and you hydrate, you're okay. My wife used to do the marathon up to the top of the mountain, which is a stupid event. But we're now in our 60s.
Yeah.
And then she realized that's a very stupid event to do. Who's the audience for this thing?
Classmates, the 177 classmates who reached out with their love for you, who gave a little bit of money.
Well,
but
first,
really
let me apologize to any classmates I offended. I really meant to offend you worse. And the ones I didn't remember, I apologize to you too.
for not remembering you.
But the rest of us, let's remember the van and keep it quiet and in the van.
Keep it in the van.
Yeah.
That's the advice. Keep it in the van. That's going to be on the. I'm going to put that on the cover.
We had that before Vegas had it. Whatever happens in the van stays in the van.
You know, if you'd have trademarked that, we'd all been rich.
Oh, right. Yeah.
What goes in the van stays in the van. And Vegas grabbed it.
Until I want to drive it again.
Ivy, you are a legend, brother. So well done, and so many of the classmates ask after you. They want to know how you're doing, and so many folks just absolutely send their best regards. We love you very much, and we
thanks,
hope you
Paul.
feel better. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and to stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe buttons. With 954 living graduates in the class, we have a lot of stories to collect, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.